Hello, students. This is Dr.NoorNigar, and today I'm going to summarize Chapter 6 of Carvalho. Now, in this lesson, the narrator goes to visit Carvalho. Now, why did the narrator go to see Carvalho? His paddy fields were plagued by a strange variety of invisible pests. Means he was not able to see the pests that were destroying his paddy crop. Now, the paddy would grow usually tall. The plant would grow tall. It will bear big ears, but it will be all full of only sap. Sap means the outer covering, and there would be no grain inside. The grain would be eaten up by the rice would be eaten up by the invisible pest, and it would be just outer covering. And that's why while winnowing is the process of removing the grain from the sap. During that, even the sound grains, the big grains would fly away. That means the inside grain is eaten away by some pests. And even spraying insecticides did not help him. And that is one of the reasons why he wanted to go and visit Carvalho to understand why this was happening with his paddy crop, because Carvalho was an officer in the Paddy Research Center. Though this is paddy field, this is the sap, there was some invisible pest. This is the process of winnowing, where the husk or the sap or the outer cover is removed from the rice. Now, the narrator had other problem also. He did not have enough seeds for transplanting when he wants to do farming, but then there was not enough seed. And also someone had sold him his lazy bullocks. The bullocks which he had were not ready to work in the field. How much soever he tried to make them work, these bullocks were not ready to work. And because there was hardly any crop, he did not have enough money to pay the farm laborers. And the paddy, on top of that, the paddy was infested with this invisible pests. And people around in the village said it was the work of a devil spirit, because you don't see anybody destroying your crop, but then your crop is getting destroyed. It must be the work of some devil spirit. But the narrator was not ready to believe in this superstition, and he decided to meet Carvalho. So he had heard a lot about Carvalho from people, but he never had a chance to meet him. And when he goes and he meets him, this is how he describes Carvalho. Carvalho is around 55 years old. He has gray mustache and beards. He had a little crooked or bent nose. He had serious eyes, and Carvalho looked very dignified and impressive. He looked like a Christian from Mangalore, and Carvalho spoke correct and formal Kannada, and Carvalho commands a lot of respect. Now, Carvalho told him, I cannot tell you much without seeing your crop. So next time when you come, you bring some specimen. But he advised him to drain away all the water from the fields. He said that possibly these pests live close to the stem and under the water, and that is why pesticides has no effect on them, because they are under the water. So the pesticide that he is spraying is not having any effect on these pests. And he guessed it must be army worms. You can see the picture, the army worms that Carvalho guessed might have infested the narrator's paddy field. Now, how were the pests tackled? So when the narrator goes back, he drains away all the water from the field, and the pests, they start dropping off from the lower part of the stems. Because the lower part of the stem was covered with water, they all had stuck there and they were not visible. But when the water was drained away, they all started falling down and crawling on the wet earth. And that is when birds, frogs, and ants started eating them. And the leftover worms, the narrator sprayed insecticides and killed them. So his problem was solved. The problem of invisible pest was solved. Now, when the narrator comes back to inform the Carvalho about this. Carvalho was very happy that his guess was right, and also he informed the narrator that he Carvalho says that he's very happy that the narrator is the only farmer who has come to seek his advice. Now, the narrator was really surprised because he had heard about Carvalho from many people. Many people talk about knowing Carvalho, and how come nobody has come to take Carvalho's advice? However, Carvalho says that he doesn't know all these people mentioned by the narrator, but then he says that maybe I'm the only gadgeted officer around, and they call him for all kind of meetings, all sort of meetings, and maybe that is how people know him, but he doesn't know all these rich, influential people. But then the narrator says, and the Carvalho informs that he was also invited to the 15th August meeting where the minister was supposed to come. Then the narrator immediately informs Carvalho, good that you did not go to that function, because Mandana, he bait the drums, and bees came from the forest and they started biting everybody. And then Carvalho immediately recognized Mandana. And then the narrator was really surprised that Carvalho, who doesn't know these rich people, influential people, says that he doesn't know them, but he knows Mandana very well. The narrator was a little surprised. And then the Carvalho tells that the bees in India usually do not bite without provocation. However, he adds that Mau Mau bees in South Africa are the ones who bite without any provocation. Now, the next day, Mandana comes to the narrator's house with a big gunny bag on his shoulder. Now, what was there inside this gunny bag? This bag looked very heavy, and a red color liquid was falling from that bag. It was actually pork. Pork means pig's meat. Now, Mandana said that it was, very good pork, A1 pork, and to the meat was attached fat, which was 6 inches. And also, this pork tastes like copra, that is maybe a dried coconut, and it can be eaten even raw without cooking. And Mandana also informs that he supplies pork to Carvalho as well. And the narrator thought maybe that is the reason why how Carvalho knows Mandana, but narrator was wrong. When the narrator next goes to meet Carvalho, he was informed that Carvalho has taken a leave for 1 week and he has gone somewhere with Mandana. That is where this lesson ends.